In this video, we're going to just take a look at a breakdown of how the stock chart was built. And very simple, a lot of the same techniques we've already covered. So let's just go through the objects and look at how and why they were constructed this way. So when you build things, especially for kind of a motion graphics environment, it's very important to think about how they're going to be animated. If you do that, you can save yourself tons of time in the setup, and then when you get to animation, it's a breeze. So, for example, some of the traditional methods that were used here are sweeps. So you'll see, for example, the frame is a sweep NURBS. And all I did was take the rectangle spline, you can see there, a little bit of a rounded edge, and then created a linear L shape for the frame of the graph. And when I put those together under a sweep NURBS, I get this nice looking frame. And what this allows me to do is simple animation. So we've looked at sweep NURBS before. We can do things like start growth and end growth. So if we wanted this to build out vertically, we can just set keyframes for that. So very simple, traditional, it works. As far as the graph plot, it's just a simple sweep NURBS as well. So we have this path that was created again with basically a linear spline. So we had these sharp rises and falls, and we can go back with the same tools and grow this chart out. Very simple. For the little metrics measurements here of the stock, just created a cube and a linear cloner. And once again, this can be affected by effectors. So if we want to roll a cage through like we've done in some of the other animations to build that out, we can. And we can also just use for this type of thing, the simple connections here. Just set the count to 0, and then over time, boop, 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 have it build up. So very simple stuff for the metrics. The backdrop frame is just a plane, but here I've set it to a fracture object and as a child of a fracture object, and that's so it can see the MoGraph effectors. So again, everything is set up to be animated either traditionally simple with sweeps, or they can be affected by effectors that can basically roll through and animate everything else at once, or staggered, however we want it to happen. So the grid sweep is a little bit different. So this is our actual grid here, and this was created with a MoSpline. So what I did was I took the backdrop here, the plane, and if I go to my edges and select all edges, we can go up to mesh and go to commands and go to edge to spline, and what we get is this right here. So if I pull this out, you can see this. So that is the mesh, and so I've assigned, here's the edges that were turned into now a spline, and then with the combination of a MoSpline object and the rectangular shape that I'm using to actually build the geometry and place that under a sweep NURBS, we can animate this in a couple of different ways. We can animate it using the MoSpline start and end, or we can use the sweep NURBS to build that in as well, and it can be affected by effectors. So lots of options for how that can work for us. I'm just going to back this up. There we go. And then again, simple text splines, MoText for some of these percentages. And then for the arrows, They're just extruded inside objects that I've formed to be triangles, and place them under fracture objects so again they can be affected by our MoGraph effectors. So that should get you all set up for building out this simple part of our scene, and then upcoming we'll be looking at animating all these pieces together.